I'm Diego Ragnaniello. I'm chairing this webinar. I have to remind you that this webinar is going to be recorded. Anyway, the question answering section will not be recorded. So today, it's a pleasure for me to welcome Benedetta. Benedetta is an associate professor at the University of Siena, specializing in multimedia forensic, AI security, and neural network watermarking. Her research focuses on defending against adversarial attacks and safeguarding the authenticity of AI-generated content. So it's a very, very hot topic. She is currently serving as associate editor for major journals and conferences. So it's really a pleasure. It's a very interesting topic, in my opinion. I would leave the stage to Benedetta. So Benedetta, you should be able to share the screen. Let's try.
Sure. So thanks for the introduction. Now I'm trying to share my screen. Okay, let me try this one. I have to it asked me for some permission. Sorry. Share. Okay.
We can, yes, okay. We can see your screen. Thank you.
Okay, so you can see my screen, and I will now share the presentation. Can you please confirm you see it?
Yes, we can see it in presentation mode. Perfect.
So let me try to make this smaller. You see also your faces on the right, because I see the Zoom window.
Yes, we can see the presentation.
Now I put it here, so
yes.
No, on our side, we just see your presentation, and the video are in the top of the screen, so no problem.
Okay, so I'm trying to remove it for myself because. Okay. Now, just one thing, in order, because I know that when I present, then it may happen. Should this happen that the connection breaks, I may not realize this because I only see the slides. So every time, I mean, after some slides, I will ask you for some feedback just to be sure we are still online. Okay.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so thanks Diego for the introduction. So I am Benedetta Tondi from the University of Siena, and today in this webinar I want to talk about watermarking of generative AI from copyright protection to the authentication of media content, which is, as Diego said, hot topic nowadays. Okay, so first of all, a little bit of this is the outline of the talk. We start with a brief, history of fake, and then an introduction to the AI media revolution. Then we will highlight the limits of. Sorry? Oh, okay, then we highlight the limits of passive methods for authentication. Then we will move to proactive authentication based on watermarks. At this point, we will briefly introduce DNN watermarking in general. Then we will focus on generative model watermarking, and we will see early and more advanced solutions. And then we will discuss watermarking for image authentication. Okay, so real fake. The image editing actually has a very long history, in the end of 90s, the diffusion of easy-to-use image tools like Photoshop permitted everyone to create fake images and raised alarm concerning the widespread of misinformation and the misuse of digital images. This also marked the birth of a new discipline, multimedia forensic, whose goal is to verify the authenticity of digital media. The authenticity of a digital media, starting from the analysis of the traces inside the media itself. Now, the problem has become more serious than ever in the AI area, because nowadays there are tools like Freepik, Midjourney, Adobe Firefly, and ChatGPT itself that are now widely used to create realistic images. And this is not only for images, but also for video. The OpenAI Sora, for instance, is an example of a tool we can use for videos. In this talk, I will focus on images, even if some of the things I say in general also apply to other media, okay? So the idea is that there are tools available, freely available to everyone, so everyone can easily create images from scratch, just type in a prompt, or edit images, changing the appearance, style, and content. Okay, also the availability of large-scale foundation models permits to user and small business companies to get specialized tools to perform specific tasks or can work in specific context, like here, for instance, creative art, photo restoration, or fashion design. Okay, then the immediate consequence of this is AI misuse. AI misuse means the use of AI for malevolent purposes, which leads to the spread of misinformation, which is a very big problem nowadays, more than in the past. Okay, so actually the AI revolution is, we can say that it's shaping a new area. And then say that the question that if distinguishing we have to address this question. Okay, is distinguishing between real and fake a question that still makes sense? Okay, because the problem is that understanding that an image has been manipulated by an AI software may no longer be a meaningful information nowadays, because soon almost all content in the web will be fake, according to estimates more than 90% at the end of 2026. And besides not making much sense, this question, then there is another problem that is complex. It's complex because there are so many ways images can be modified with so many software, and the image editing AI is improving continuously and so fast that multimedia forensic say that has to work in the wild more than ever, and this is difficult. Okay, as a result, multimedia forensic remains always behind. And in this scenario, there is a more meaningful question researchers have to find an answer to. That is, which AI software has been used to produce a given image. So there is a shift from detection to attribution, whose goal is to trace images back to the generative AI model that produced them. So this is the new, say, multimedia forensic objective. Okay, then deepfake and misinformation is not the only kind of AI misuse. Another example is copyright infringement. Why? Because actually developing AI generative models involves large costs. It requires massive data, huge computational resources, and a lot of expertise. So only big companies can afford this. Let's say that we can say that deep generative models are intellectual property of their owners. So in this scenario, the problem is that attackers may want to steal AI models to use them and provide their own services under payment. Then we understand that protecting the intellectual property of models is becoming essential. And the watermarking actually offers a solution to this problem. We are still live? Everything okay?
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, actually, watermarking allows, we can say that it allows to catch two birds with one stone. That meaning that it allows to address both the two problems you have mentioned in our introduction. So the use of deepfake for misinformation and the violation of the copyright. So generative model, in particular, generative model watermarking can be used for intellectual property right protection and proactive media authentication. So in the first case, so generative model watermarking for intellectual property right protection, so what we do is to watermark the AI generative models so that they contain ownership information, and then based on this information we can trace the model back to the owner. In this way, to prevent, let's say, the model from being stolen and reused with no authorization. On the other side, generative model watermarking can be used for proactive media authentication, and in this case, we watermark the AI generative models by inserting imperceptible signals inside all the outputs they produce. And in this way, by looking for the presence of this signal inside the output, we can trace the AI images back to the generative AI model that produced them. So there is a paradigm shift from passive approaches, those offered by multimedia forensics, to active approaches. Okay, actually there is a growing interest in watermarking and proactive detection in general, and some big companies like Adobe and Google have started releasing tools to watermark and identify content generated through their AIs. For instance, the content authenticity tool of Adobe, or the SynthID watermarking tool by Google Mind, and there is a similar tool from OpenAI. In addition, in 2021, a coalition called C2PA was launched, established by major companies like Microsoft and Adobe itself, to develop an open technical standard for tracking the provenance and establishing the authenticity of digital media. So we understand that watermarking and proactive detection in general is becoming a very important topic that is catching more and more attention. In particular, also, I want to mention the AI Act regulation imposed by the European Union that has a deadline for full compliance in 2026, which obliges generative AI providers to ensure that their outputs can be traced back to them, and this for AI transparency and for trustworthy AI. Okay, so now before going on and speaking about the methods for generative model watermarking, I need to take say a step back and introduce the general problem of the general topic of DNN watermarking. Because deep neural network watermarking has been proposed several years ago, now at this point time passes, as a way to protect the intellectual property right of DNN models, both discriminative and generative. So let's say that this is as a way to address what the second problem AI misuse we have mentioned in our introduction, so the violation of copyright. And how it works, the idea is to embed within a DNN model a specific signal, this is like a signature which identifies the owner at training time, that then can be used later for a given purpose, for instance, to establish the ownership. And to be effective, the watermark should be robust against model modifications that can be applied either unintentionally or intentionally. For instance, pruning, compression, retraining, so fine-tuning and transfer learning. And this means that we have to be able to extract the watermarks also from perturbed versions of the model. Okay, a bit of taxonomy. Actually, DNN watermarking differs from traditional function watermarking, from traditional image watermarking, because in DNN watermarking, we are watermarking functionals and not directly signals. And a categorization, a common categorization that stems from this, say, functional watermarking nature is based on the kind of access that the verification authority has to the model during the extraction. So we distinguish between these three categories: white box watermarking, black box watermarking, and box-free watermarking. Now let us go over them one by one. So white box watermarking. In white box watermarking, the watermark is embedded inside the parameters, so the weights or biases or even the activations of the model. And then the decoder needs white box access to the model for watermark extraction. That's why it's called white box. In black box watermarking, instead, the watermark is embedded in the input-output relationship. So, say, in the model, in the output behavior of the model in correspondence to some specific inputs that are called the trigger inputs. In this case, the decoder only needs API access to the model for the extraction, because he needs to query the model with the trigger inputs and then look at the output. Finally, the box-free watermarking, in this case, the watermark is embedded inside the output of the model, in the product of the model. And then in this case, there is, I mean, the decoder only needs to access to the output of the model. The watermark is read directly from the output, so no need for the box. That's why is called box-free. Okay, now at this point I want to go over these categories in more details. So let me start with white box watermarking. So this is the pipeline of white box watermarking. So basically, the watermark is embedded inside the model by incorporating during training a specific watermark loss for the white box task. In this way, we get the watermarked model. This watermarked model can be then perturbed, and this perturbation can be seen like equivalent to the transmission over a noisy channel in a digital communication. Given then the perturbed watermarked model, we have then to extract the watermark from this perturbed version of the model, so via the decoder. Okay, so B, I didn't introduce you the notation, but with B we refers to the watermark message, while with K we refers to the secret element key that gives the secrecy of the watermark. So, okay, next scheme, black box watermarking. The scheme here, the pipeline is very similar. So the only difference is that this time we have to be able to extract the watermark from the perturbed model, but by observing the outputs of the model in correspondence to some specific inputs that are the trigger inputs. And even in this case, we need to incorporate a specific watermark loss term in the optimization to achieve the black box watermarking task. Okay, finally, the box-free watermarking. And box-free watermarking, things are a bit more complicated. We can say that box-free watermarking corresponds to a case of joint DNN and image watermarking. Why? DNN watermarking, because actually we are watermarking the DNN. So we instruct the DNN to produce outputs that contain the watermark information. Image watermarking, because actually we are watermarking the output that is typically an image, and then this is equivalent to image watermarking. And then the watermark is read from the output. Okay, even in this case, to achieve the box-free watermarking task, we need to include in the optimization specific watermark loss term. Okay, and then actually in this scenario, there is a further requirement for the watermarking system. That is, the watermark has to robust against image level attacks, meaning that we have to be able to extract the watermark also from processed versions of the images. So after that, the image has been subject to processing, can be compression, resizing, or editing. There is another important point to highlight, is that box-free watermarking is only possible for network architectures for which the output has a large enough entropic content, so that this is enough, say, to hide the watermark information. This is the case for generative models, autoencoders, but it's not the case for discriminative models. Okay, so these are the challenges of DNN watermarking. First of all, in theory, we will need a new theory of function watermarking in principle. The watermark has to satisfy the unobtrusiveness requirements, meaning that it should not impact the normal functionality of the model. In addition, the watermark has to achieve both model level and image level robustness, at least in the box-free scenario. We have to care about both, which is challenging. And also, we need to define very well the security model to understand better, say, the requirements for the watermark in the system we are developing, which may depend on the application scenario. And finally, beside robustness, we should also care about the security against intentional attacks. For instance, removal attacks and overwriting attacks, so attacks that try to remove the watermark or replace it with another one. Okay, now at this point, let us focus on generative model watermarking. Okay, then focusing on generative model watermarking, most of the methods are box-free, some of them black box, but the box-free is for sure the most interesting category. And the box-free is the category we were referring to in our introduction, because box-free methods are those that allow us to, say, catch two birds with one stone via watermarking. So the copyright protection on one side and the image authentication on the other. And box-free watermarking can be used, in fact, to detect and trace synthetic images back to the generative AI model that produced them. That can be of GAN type, or it can be of diffusion model type, or the image can be real if we don't find any watermark information pointing to a model owner. Okay, now let us go over, review some of the approaches proposed for box-free watermarking, so generative model box-free watermarking. The first is the imitation game. This was the first method that was proposed to perform generative model watermarking in white box, in a box-free setting. And how it works, the watermark is embedded via imitation. So first, an image watermarking network is, say, pre-trained and then utilized to get a data set of watermarked images that contain the watermark information. Then this data set is used to train the GAN. In this way, we say that the watermark is inherited, and then the trained GAN produces watermarked images, so images that contain the prescribed watermark and from which the prescribed watermark can be extracted. This was the first attempt. Then a more advanced methodology relied on supervised training. Actually, the supervised approach has been proposed for GANs, but then also extended to diffusion models in the famous stable signature paper. And this is the pipeline. So the generative watermarked model is obtained in 2 steps. In the first stage, a watermark encoder-decoder pair is trained to embed the prescribed watermark inside the images. Then the decoder is taken, frozen, and used in the second step for the training of the GAN in order to instruct the generator to produce generated images that contain the watermark information. We also include an image processing layer, both in the training of the image watermarking network and in the training of the generator, in order to make the watermark robust to image processing, to image level attacks. Okay, how let's see. Oh, okay, these are the steps. Okay, let's see how the training of the generator is of the GAN is achieved. To achieve it, actually, what we did is to add a watermark loss term to the standard loss for the generator, and this watermark loss is typically the binary loss entropy between the predicted watermark, so the watermark extracted from the decoder, and the true watermark, while the loss of the discriminator doesn't change. It is the standard loss. And here we have some results for the case of StyleGAN2 watermarking. And in the first row here, you see the images produced by the clean model. In the second row is the image produced by the watermarked model for the same seed. And in this case, the watermark payload, so the number of embedded bits is 100. The quality of the image generation is measured by the fresh injection distance, the FID, which is a commonly used metric to assess the quality of generated images. And the FID, we see that the FID values are similar in the 2 cases for clean and watermarked. Actually, is a bit higher, so worse in the watermarked case. The bit accuracy instead is used to measure the watermark effectiveness, and bit accuracy gives the percentage of bits that are correctly recovered by the detector. In this case, the average bit accuracy is 99.75, so above 99%. And if we want to establish ownership, what we have to do is basically we have to put a threshold on the bit accuracy to decide if the specific watermark signature is present or not, to performing binary hypothesis testing. And actually, in general, we have seen that ownership can be successfully established. Successfully means with a small enough false positive and false negative when the bit accuracy is larger than 70%. Okay, the previous results were refers to StyleGAN2 watermarking, so a task of image synthesis from scratch. Actually, the supervised approach is general and can also be applied to other networks and architecture. So we say that it is architecture agnostics, and then it can also be applied, for instance, to super resolution and image translation. Here I'm reporting the results for a case of super resolution, and we see that from these results, the presence of the watermark causes only a limited degradation in the quality of the generated image, and the PSNR, for instance, here of the edited image passes from 23.87 in the clean case to 21.94 in the watermarked case. Okay, and here in this slide we have the performance in terms of robustness against image level attacks. Here you see an original image, and then the same image perturbed with different processing. For every case, you have the processing information, and then the bit accuracy and PSNR, so measuring watermark effectiveness and quality. And these, you see, they all correspond to cases of very strong processing. And what we can see from here is that the watermark is very robust, and the bit accuracy remains pretty high, above, say in this case, is very high. For instance, here in this case of contrast enhancement is 84%, even when the PSNR of the image is very low. In this case, is 15.12 dB. So this means that the method is very robust against image level attack. In this slide, instead, we have the performance in terms of robustness against model level attacks, and in particular model pruning. So the percentage you see here is the pruning percentage, so the percentage of parameters that are pruned, eliminated from the model. And we see that the bit accuracy remains very high, so above 90%, until a pruning percentage of 20-25. For higher pruning rates, then the bit accuracy decreases pretty rapidly. However, the image generation capability of the model is also significantly impaired. Too much, the quality becomes very bad. And so this indicates that the watermark is very robust against model pruning. However, the robustness is not that strong if we consider fine-tuning. And here you have an example. So fine-tuning means that we retrain the network for some epochs without the watermark loss, so with the standard loss. And here are some results for the StyleGuide 2 watermarking task. So we see that the bitwise accuracy decreases below 70%, so below 70, yes, after less than 200 of iterations, which is much less than one epoch. Say that is 20% of an epoch. So the question is how to improve robustness against fine-tuning. A possibility here is to exploit the concept of a wide flat minimum. The idea here is to, of the wide flat minimum, is to enforce the convergence of a model to a wide and flat minimum of the watermarking loss. Because in this way, the watermarking loss is made, say, insensitive or less sensitive to small, but also even moderate modifications of the parameters. And how we achieve this? Considering during training a modified gradient of the watermark loss. That is, instead of considering the current parameter vector, we consider several perturbed versions, or many, say, perturbed versions of the current parameter vector, and then we take the average loss, and then the gradient is computed with respect to that loss. The method has been proposed for GANs, but is not special for GANs, and can also be applied, for instance, to diffusion models. Is general, okay? And here I'm reporting the results of robustness against fine-tuning exploiting the wide flat minimum. And what we see is that thanks to the wide flat minimum, the robustness can be much improved with respect to the standard supervised training, and the bit accuracy in particular is always larger than 80%, even after thousands of iterations. That means several epochs of fine-tuning. While with the other approaches, so the imitation gain and the standard supervised training, the bit accuracy rapidly decreases below 70 after a few hundreds of iterations. And these results are for StyleGuide 2 watermarking, but actually we observed similar results for different architectures. Okay, at this point, I want to pass from watermarking to fingerprinting. So why fingerprinting? Fingerprinting because in some application, it may be useful to embed different watermarks in different versions of the same model. Think, for instance, about this scenario where we have a model distributor who releases different model instances to different users who use them for their downstream tasks. So, for instance, to release their AI-based services. In this scenario, it is desirable, say, that different user-specific fingerprints are embedded inside each model version. And then these fingerprints can be extracted from the images generated by these models. Why this? And this is useful to prevent illegal distribution of model copies, so for trace tracing. That is to identify the guilty user in case of a violation of a license agreement, essentially. The problem is that with most watermarking methods, and also see those seen so far, this requires that the model owner retrain a new model containing the specific watermark information for every user. And this is time and resource consuming. We would like to do that without retraining. And a technique called personalized normalization may help with that. Which is the idea. The idea of personalized normalization is to introduce a layer, personalized normalization layer, in a certain position of the generator whose parameters are responsible for the watermark embedding. So these parameters, so the weight and biases of this layer, are generated by an external parameter generation network, which is fed with the user-specific fingerprint. And then these values are replaced inside the GAN. Actually, this method, the idea of watermarking of embedding the watermark inside the normalization layer is not new, but is inspired to famous password-based approaches that were proposed several years ago for the watermarking of the protection, say, of the intellectual properties of discriminative models. So let's see how the training works in this case, considering GANs, because the method has been proposed for GANs, and actually the generator of the GAN and the parameter generation network as two networks that are trained simultaneously. And these are the losses involved in the training. The first two losses you see here are the standard adversarial and watermark loss. The other two losses, LZIT and nconst, are two new loss terms, and in particular, nconst is introduced to ensure that different model instances parameterized by different watermarks produces the same output images. While LZIT is a new loss term which is introduced to instruct the decoder to reconstruct the input, can be noise or can be an image depending on the task, in addition to recover the watermark. So the decoder in this scheme has this double job. This may seem strange, this loss at first sight, but we will see in a moment why it is necessary. Okay, then before, let's see how model instantiation, distribution, so deployment work. For model instantiation, to create a new model with a given watermark, it is only necessary that we run the parameter generation network with the specific fingerprint as input to generate the weights and the biases of the personalized normalization layer, which is then replaced inside the GAN. At this point, for model deployment, during model deployment, we only release the fingerprint generator, while the parameter generation network and the decoder, the watermark decoder, are kept by the model owner. Okay, so now let us see the impact of the loss term. First of all, LZIT. Here you see some examples of images generated by two model instances. The first one watermarked with watermark 1, and the second one watermarked with watermark 2, when we vary the input noise. On the left, in the case of model fingerprinted with LZIT, on the right, in the case of model fingerprinted without LZIT. And we see that in the second case, all the images are equal. There is no diversity. So this means that the LZIT terms is essential to force the dependency of the generated images on the input noise. So to force the generator to rely on the input noise. Without LZIT, the generator tend to focus only on the watermark and ignore the input noise to the seed. And then that's why we need the LZIT. Okay, because the diversity otherwise is only given by the watermark, say in a different way. Okay, now L-const is a loss term, which is also important, as I said, because here you see an example of generated images when with L-const and without L-const. We see that L-const is crucial to enforce a more uniform and stable behavior of the model watermarked with different bits, because the idea is that we want that the generated images are the same if the images generated by different model instances are the same if the input noise is the same. And when we are not considering L-const, we see that this is not the case, and there is variability. Okay, here in this slide, I'm reporting the impact of the position of the personalized and normalization layer, because we try to place this layer at the input of the network in an intermediate position, and at the output. Output means at the penultimate layer of the network, and this is the default position. So the previous results were referring to this case, and all means, after all, the convolutional layers. And we see from these results that these are just for two-gun architectures, but results are similar in other cases. We see that the accuracy and FID actually is not much affected by the position of the personalized and normalization layer, while the accuracy after fine-tuning, yes. So the best results actually are achieved with the intermediate, and in particular with the penultimate, so the default position. Okay, just to conclude regarding personalized and normalization based fingerprinting, actually we have worked on an extension of the method to diffusion models, and we have a paper in preparation. So the fingerprinted latent diffusion model is obtained from a pre-trained latent diffusion model in two steps. In the first step, what we do is to modify the variation autoencoder by inserting a personalized normalization module, whose parameters are given by an external network, which is similar to the personalized generalization, to the personalized network we have seen before. And then the WEI decoder encoder, so the WEI modified in this way, is fine-tuned to embed the watermark information. Simultaneously, we train a fingerprint decoder that instructs the WEI decoder to embed the fingerprint information inside the output image. In the second step, we take the fingerprinted WEI decoder and replace it to the original WEI decoder inside the LDM, thus getting the fingerprinted LDM model that can be used for image generation. This is a case of text to image, but we can also apply it to image task. Okay. Now I don't provide more details at this point on the fingerprinting for diffusion models, because I want to pass to the last topic, that is watermarking for image authentication. So far we have seen methods for generative model watermarkings, black box-free methods that allow us to achieve simultaneously the protection of the copyright on one side and the proactive image authentication on the other. However, in many applications, what we are interested in is just image authentication, because the model, for instance, is kept private, is not distributed, so it does not have to be protected. But still, we want to watermark the output, okay, for AI traceability as a solution for trustworthy AI. In this case, post-generation watermarking can be exploited, and this is the scheme of post-generation watermarking. Basically, in post-generation watermarking, the watermark is embedded inside the image after the generation, so without touching the model. Post-generation watermarking actually is equivalent to traditional image watermarking, which has a very long history, for those of you who know about this. And it's also important to point that in this scenario, the robustness of the watermark is only to be satisfied against image level attacks, so image processing, because the model is not touched. Okay, and actually there is a huge amount of methods that of belonging to the category of post-generation watermarking or image watermarking that have been developed, all based on networks. So Stegastamp is, for instance, the first image watermarking network that has been proposed, then hidden until more complex and advanced frameworks that have been recently proposed with improved robustness, like EditGuard and OmniGuard. However, all these methods have common weaknesses. First, lack of secrecy. There is no secret element, and the detector is public, meaning that anyone can read the watermark. This is for sure a desired property, but on the other side, it facilitates attack, overwriting attacks, removal attacks. The robustness is only achieved to non-processing only. So that is processing considering during training, typically with the introduction of a noise layer. The trade-off among the three requirements for the watermark, payload, robustness, and visibility, is hard to control. The payload is often limited, one may say, but having a high payload is not so important. However, the capability of embedding a large payload can be exploited to improve other things. For instance, the robustness, taking advantage of the trade-off. The methods have poor flexibility. They do not scale very well with the size, and they do not scale at all with the payload. The methods work for small and medium-sized images, but there is no real effective solution for the watermarking of large-size images. However, the images from modern and commercial AI generators, like Stable Diffusion, Flux, Adobe Firefly, they have typically very large size, 1024 times 1024, and even above. For instance, FreePic is 2048 times 2048. So at this point, we have to, these are the observations. Some of these weaknesses were not there with traditional image watermarking. For instance, the limited payload, the hard to control trade-off, the poor flexibility, and the issue of watermarking large size images. So a provocative question says that at this point arises is if old-fashionedness is back. So what we did in this work is to, that we submitted to HiveCasp, is to exploit and say, extend, improve a traditional image watermarking method to embed large size images with high payloads and in a robust manner. Then what we did is to exploit this high payload for semantic watermarking, that is to embed a textual description inside the image. And this can be used for semantic manipulation detection. This is the pipeline of the scheme. So a textual description or a textual prompt is embedded inside the image by the encoder. Then we get the watermarked AI image, which is posted, spread, uploaded, and then it may be subject to manipulations, so what standard processing, so JPEG, noise addition, and so on, but also semantic manipulation, like for instance, AI in paint. Here I show an image without a plane. At any time during this life, the decoder may extract the textual watermark, and then based on this textual watermark, of course, we can perform attribution, so we can perform say ownership verification. But the interesting thing is that by looking at the recovered text and seeing if there is a mismatch between text and image content, we can understand if the image has been modified and also have an indication on how. And this, I'm reporting here a couple of examples of original image, watermarked image, and AI-edited image, and also an example in the last column of recovered text, so the text that we get from the AI-edited version of the image. Bit error rate 0 means that the recovered text is equal to the original text. And we see here that there are inconsistencies between.
Sorry to interrupt, Benedetta. We have a couple of minutes, then we will have the question answering.
Okay, so you see here there are inconsistencies between text and image content. That gives indication that the image has been modified, and also tells us what has been changed. Of course, the richer the description, the longer the text, the better. But for that we need many bits, large pages. Okay, then maybe I can skip this. This is just before concluding. I wanted to say that there is another possible approach for image watermarking. That is the pre-generation approach. In this case, the image is watermarked by encoding the information in the seed image used for the generation. And this is another possible approach. They can be easily incorporated into existing pipeline, but unfortunately, the problem is that the extraction is complicated because we need to whiteboard access to the model for watermark extraction. To conclude, the NN watermarking, we have seen that the NN watermarking provides an effective means for the protection of the intellectual property of network models. If we focus on generating models, box-free watermarking is a very interesting category, which allows to achieve simultaneously ownership protection on one side and image authentication on the other. Exploiting the box-free approach, we can develop very efficient and effective generative model fingerprinting methods. When we are not interested in model protection, then image authentication can be directly achieved with post-generation watermarking, that is equivalent to image watermarking, and methods performing image watermarking based on DNS, we have seen that have several limitations, and we can say that they are still behind model-based image watermarking. Looking ahead, we need to better investigate and possibly improve the trade-off among the three requirements of robustness, payload, and visibility to understand the ultimate limits of generative model watermarking. We need to pay more attention to the security against intentional attacks, like overwriting, removal attacks, trying to remove watermarks or replace watermarks with different ones. We also should pay more attention to the secrecy, which is often overlooked completely in the schemes developed recently, but because a watermark encoder, decoder pair in most of the scheme have no secret element. The problem is that these, and together with the public watermark decoder, makes everything more problematic, because a public watermark decoders may be subject to adversarial attacks as well, besides being easier, besides giving assets from the security point of view. Finally, we believe that combining DNN-based methods with model-based methodologies may help to develop more effective watermarking solutions that achieve a better trade-off among the requirements of the watermark. Okay, I've concluded. Sorry for being too long.
No, it was perfect. Thank you very much for this interesting talk, and for interesting food for thoughts